Hey, it's Roman Grecia, the editor of Faro English. Today we have a special episode for you with our phenomenal colleagues at Latino USA to bring you to Guatemala, where one man is still looking to be reunited with his son after being separated from him and deported in Donald Trump's first term. Hundreds of families like his remain separated. Reinaldo Leaños Jr. came to Guatemala to report this story, and he'll take things from here.
Futuro.
Futuro investigates. Futuro investiga.
I'm in Chimaltenango, Guatemala. It's about 30 miles west from the country's capital of Guatemala City. The road to get here was very windy. We had to gain some altitude, and it was also the morning rush hour. And yeah, I'm outside the building. And in typical me fashion, I'm a little early. I'm here to meet Licenciado Jose Gabriel Zelada Ortiz, a local activist, and I'm going to embark on a trip with him. That's what brought me here, more than 3,000 miles away from New York City. The street I'm standing in is muddy. The houses around me are painted in bright shades of pink, yellow, green, and orange. When Gabriel opens the door, he looks startled.
Hola. Buenas, mi nombre es Reinaldo.
Oh,
Gabriel.
Rey, adelante,
Hola.
adelante.
¿Cómo estás?
Bien.
He welcomes me in, and we walk through his sprawling courtyard towards his office. Gabriel is wearing a baby blue colored shirt with his sleeves rolled up to his elbows. His hair is peppery.
¿Y cómo está tu día ahorita?
Gabriel says there's been a series of break-ins at his office.
La primera vez se van las computadoras, ya la última vez, archivos.
Someone stole computers and archives, so things have been a little tense. He believes it's related to his work. He's a labor lawyer and an economist. Gabriel is also part of an international network of human rights defenders. Part of what they do is search for families throughout Mexico and Central America who were separated at the U.S. Mexico border under the first Trump administration. Their hope is to help them reunify with their children who remain in the U.S. And that's why I'm here to see him today, to learn about these separations that happen under what's known as zero tolerance.
Que la política de tolerancia cero nunca se hubiera dado.
He says this policy should have never happened.
Porque el daño que causó a las familias es sumamente duro.
You'll probably remember this. The zero tolerance policy began in May 2018 under the first Trump administration. It basically upended immigration law, prosecuting every person entering the U.S. who was undocumented, even those presenting at ports of entry as asylum seekers, without giving them a chance to make a claim. Nearly 3,000 children were separated from their parents during a 6-week period. The parents were detained and criminally prosecuted, and their kids put in cages. Some parents were deported before they could be reunited with their kids. Trump stopped the policy in June 2018 after public backlash, but the damage was done. A congressional report from 2021 says at least 1,000 additional children were separated even after the policy ended. This brought the total reported number of separated children under Trump to more than 5,000. The trauma and impact of zero tolerance are still felt today. There's hundreds of families who remain separated more than 7 years later, according to the federal government. And the US generally didn't keep track of where the parents or children were. That's why Gabriel's work of trekking across Guatemala means so much to him and to the families that he's trying to help reunite.
Bueno, hoy vamos a salir a encontrar a la persona con la cual al padre va separado.
Gabriel is taking me on a journey to meet a father who was separated from his son and is now in the process of trying to reunite with him in the U.S.
From Futuro Media, it's Latino USA. I'm Maria Hinojosa. Today we travel to Guatemala to meet a father who was separated from his son under the first Trump administration. We'll learn how a group of volunteers are hoping to finally help them reunite, and how Trump's second term is making those reunifications even more complicated now. You just heard from Latino USA producer Reynaldo Leaños Jr. Reynaldo traveled to Guatemala to report this episode, and I'm going to pass the mic back to him for the rest of the story.
Bueno, caminamos.
Gabriel and I are about to make a day-and-a-half-long journey towards the mountains of Guatemala. We're going to meet a father, who I'm calling Teodoro. He was separated from his son, who we're calling Miguel, and we're not revealing their real names or location to protect their safety. We climb into Gabriel's gray 4x4 truck and start heading north. Teodoro was separated from his son in early 2019, more than 6 years ago, when Miguel was 14. Afterwards, they were never told that there was a pathway for reunification, and that's how Gabriel comes into the picture. Part of his job is to help track down people like Teodoro, to let them know that this is an option. We drive for a few hours, and the landscape changes. It goes from dry terrain to rolling trees of deep green. It's a beautiful mix of an open sky, winding roads snaking up and down mountains, and zooming by small towns along the way. But as I admire the scenery, Gabriel reminds me that all of this beauty is just one side of the coin.
Es una de las zonas más pobres del país, más abandonadas.
The region's population is indigenous, mostly Mayan. It's one of the poorest areas in the country.
Con pocas fuentes de trabajo, la educación se limita a sexto grado primaria.
There aren't a lot of work opportunities here, as schooling usually ends by 6th grade.
La actividad principal es la agricultura de subsistencia.
Most people here live off of subsistence agriculture, mostly corn and beans. The road is like a relic. It holds memories of the past. We zigzag, avoiding potholes.
Es decir, la carretera, esta que miramos en malas condiciones, estas son posterior al conflicto armado.
Gabriel says this road has been damaged since Guatemala's armed conflict. It lasted 36 years, from 1960 to 1996.
Esta región fue la más afectada, comunidades enteras que desaparecieron.
This region was one of the most affected ones. Entire communities were disappeared, killed, or displaced by the Civil War. A civil war in which the U.S. played a big role.
True to its commitment to fighting communism at all costs, the CIA provided intelligence, training, and armed support to the Guatemalan government throughout the war.
Right before the war started, the U.S. backed a coup that toppled a democratically elected president in Guatemala, spinning the country into chaos. Gabriel reminds me, people haven't forgotten what happened during the war.
Muchos de los padres de familia que fueron separados vivieron el conflicto y muchos de ellos perdieron a la familia.
Many people here lost their loved ones. They were massacred.
Y otros permanecieron hasta por años en la sierra, aquí mismo escondidas, comiendo raíces, comiendo hojas.
Others were hiding in the mountains for years, living off of just plants because they were scared to start a fire, fearing that they'd be spotted. Even today, he estimates that a lot of mass graves here still have not been found. There are families here who still hope that one day their loved one will be found. And now, they're living through a new trauma. Some of those same families were separated at the U.S Mexico border and yearn to be reunited with their children.
Todo esto contribuye a que sea uno de los departamentos que más expulsan migrantes hacia Estados Unidos.
A lot of the separated families left here because of the conditions, partly caused by the war. It's a land whose past and present go hand in hand. Over the hours, the moon replaces the sun. Time speeds up and slows down. And then we sleep somewhere and restart our journey at the crack of dawn. Gabriel points to one of the mountains nearby. That's where the separated father lives, he says.
Ya vamos llegando.
We're finally arriving. The town looks poor, but there's still a lot of life and color around.
Vamos a ver. Un restaurante hay por allá.
All right, so we're just parking. We're about to get down and go meet with the father.
As I walk through the market, I hear a mixture of Spanish and various Mayan languages, thousands of years old, spoken around me. Merchants sell grains of corn in elaborate woven baskets, and I see an assortment of bright fresh fruit. And there's slabs of meat hanging on hooks in the open air. After a few minutes, I finally meet Teodoro.
Mucho gusto, Reynaldo. Sí, mucho gusto.
He's in his early 50s, about my same height and skin tone, a light shade of brown. Gabriel and I walk with Teodoro to a nearby restaurant for breakfast. We want him to feel comfortable because what we're going to be talking about today is traumatic. It's about his son Miguel and the moment they were separated.
Coming up on Latino USA, our producer Reynaldo Leaños Jr. speaks with Teodoro about what happened when they met immigration officers at the U.S. Mexico border. And later, we hear how the Trump administration is making it harder for families to reunite. Stay with us, no te vayas. Welcome back to Latino USA. I'm Maria Hinojosa. When we left off, producer Reynaldo Leaños Jr. had just met up with Teodoro, who was separated from his son Miguel back in 2019. Reynaldo is going to pick up the rest of the story now from Guatemala.
Huevos revueltos con longaniza, huevos revueltos con chorizo, longaniza y salchicha.
Gabriel is reading the breakfast menu to Teodoro.
A veces entiendo el español bien, a veces me cuesta entenderlo.
Teodoro can speak Spanish, but his main form of communication is the Mayan language.
Yo quiero algo normal, no sé cuál es. Sí, frijolito. Huevo, algo así.
Frijolitos y huevos.
Teodoro settles on a plate of eggs and beans. After he orders, he tells me Spanish can sometimes trip him up.
Era muy pobre y además como el tiempo de la guerra, pues, ahí donde nos refugiamos a la montaña, donde ahí no dieron ni estudio más que.
Teodoro grew up very poor during the Civil War. He says he and his family fled to the mountains, so he didn't get a chance to go to school. His father and grandfather were killed, so he became responsible for his family. After we eat, we drive further up the mountain and find a private place to talk. Gabriel unlatches the bed of his truck so that Teodoro and I can sit on it side by side for our interview. We get comfortable. There's a luscious, leafy landscape. We're enveloped between mountains of green overlooking the small town that we just came from. There's a thin mist in the air, but buses, motorcycles, and cars zoom through it on the road next to us. And there's a chilly breeze, rustling from leaf to leaf, that settles onto our skin.
Esa es la foto de mi hijo. Sí, tiene 14 años y medio cuando viajé con él allá.
Teodoro shows me an old photo of his son Miguel on his phone. He has a baby face. He was only 14 when they left Guatemala and traveled to the U.S Mexico border.
Él tomaba poco su cafecito y él iba a la escuela. Él le gusta estudiar.
Teodoro reminisces on those early days. Miguel would wake up, drink his coffee, and go to school. He loved to study, and when he'd get home, he'd happily do his homework.
Cuando mi hijo estaba conmigo, pues él estaba contento al verme porque yo estoy con él.
When his son was with him, they were happy.
Eso es lo que más me recuerdo.
Never did he imagine that their journey to the U.S. would be the last time they would physically be together. They left Guatemala in early 2019 with very little, but at least they had each other.
Lo que yo llevaba en mi mente es llegar junto con mi hijo allá y a trabajar con mi hijo, a dar su estudio.
All Teodoro could think about on the road was that they needed to get to America together.
Él iba contento de llegar allá en Estados Unidos.
He wanted to work in the U.S., and his son wanted to study. Their travel was anything but easy. They sometimes walked the entire day under the blistering sun. They got hungry, thirsty, and they slept outside. It was about a 20-day journey. When they finally got to the border in Texas, Miguel was trembling.
Llegamos y él llegaba temblando, por poco frío, por poco miedo.
Teodoro embraced Miguel. He held his hand, and he told him not to be afraid.
Mi hijo le dije, no te pongas muy nervioso y no te pongas triste, le dije.
They had arrived. They believed that they were now safe with immigration officials.
Dije, primeramente Dios, que vamos a llegar donde queremos a salir adelante.
But they were taken into custody. Even then, Teodoro kept thanking God and praying that they'd soon be released and allowed to enter the country.
Me puso a pensar de eso. Sí, me recuerdo eso. Algo muy difícil lo que he pasado con mi hijo. Sí.
Teodoro begins to cry as he relives this moment. When they arrived at the immigration facility, Teodoro says he gave officials their documents. Soon after, he was separated from Miguel.
Se lo llevaron mi hijo.
At some point, Teodoro says he spoke with an immigration official and told him that if they released him, he wanted to be released with his son. The official told him that he'd be transferred to another facility first, then soon after, his son would join him.
No, dijo, y tu hijo se va a quedar, pero va a llegar tu hijo allí con usted, donde van a llegar, me dijo.
After some time, Teodoro was allowed to communicate with his son one time to explain what was going to happen.
Mi hijo le dije, no te vas a poner triste, mi hijo. Dije que tengas poco paciencia, dije.
He recalls telling Miguel, "Don't be sad, be patient, my son." But when Miguel heard that his father was leaving, he began to cry.
¿Por qué me vas a dejar? Me dijo.
Why are you going to leave me? Miguel asked.
No, mijo, es que ellos no lo permiten.
They don't allow us to go together, Teodoro said. The plan was never to leave you. We'll be together soon.
Pero nunca llegó mi hijo conmigo.
But his son never arrived. Soon after, Teodoro was deported back to Guatemala, alone. When he arrived back home, Teodoro eventually was able to get in contact with Miguel, who was still in the U.S.
Papá me dijo, yo ya estoy aquí, yo quiero que aquí voy a estudiar.
Miguel said, "Dad, I'm here now, so I want to stay and study." It wasn't an easy choice, but Teodoro talked to an attorney, finished paperwork, and it was settled. Miguel was eventually released from an Office of Refugee Resettlement facility and into the country to live with a sponsor.
We'll be right back. No te vayas. Hey, we're back. Producer Reynaldo Leaños Jr. continues with our story.
There were many cases like Miguel's and Teodoro's, thousands of children separated from their families. While this was happening with Teodoro and Miguel, there was litigation brought to court trying to stop the U.S. government from separating families. Then, when Biden came into office in 2021, he
issued an executive order creating a family reunification task force that was created to identify and reunify the families that had been separated, to provide support to those families and help them have a successful reunification and address the trauma that they had gone through.
That's Michelle Brunet. She led the Interagency Reunification Task Force under the Department of Homeland Security. It was a multi-agency effort created by the Biden administration to locate and reunite the separated families.
Close to 1,000 families were reunified through the task force.
Michelle ran the task force for about 3 years. She left her post in mid-2024. By then, there were still hundreds of families who had not been found and reunited.
We didn't know where they were. In most cases, the parents had been deported or removed from the United States, and there's no follow-up once that happens.
Like Teodoro, once he was deported, no one really kept track of him, even though his son was still in the U.S.
The reunifications were much more complicated, both logistically, just in terms of finding the parent and finding the child, figuring out how you were going to get them back together.
But she and others were concerned that Trump would win the 2024 election and undo their work. Or worse. Then, Trump was elected president. Again. On Inauguration Day in 2025, Trump signed an executive order on immigration and eliminated the Reunification Task Force. But still, some of the work of the task force had to continue. That's because a court ruled in late 2023 that the federal government needed to carry out certain promises for these separated and reunified families. It was known as the Missel Settlement Agreement. The settlement was the result of a class action lawsuit against the U.S. government, filed by the ACLU on behalf of the separated families. Some of the obligations in that agreement included
the families have access to a parole status to be present in the U.S., to reunite with their children. There's a modest housing benefit. There's some counseling available, some medical benefits, and then access to legal services.
That's Nan Schiavone. She's the legal director with Justice in Motion. This organization is working with people like Gabriel, the activist from Chimaltenango, through their Defender network to help find remaining separated families like Teodoro and Miguel. And the parole status mentioned above is important. It allows the parent a temporary status of sorts to be in the country to reunite with their separated child. The agreement also powers some of the work of the International Organization for Migration, known as the IOM, in order to help carry out those reunifications. This work is funded by the U.S. government under the settlement. But soon after Trump took office,
they stopped getting paid this summer.
IOM's contract also briefly expired.
When there's no IOM contract, families aren't able to submit a parole request unless they do so with private support.
This is Michelle Brunet again from the former DHS task force. Michelle says that without government funds, IOM can't do their job helping with travel and logistical arrangements.
Purchasing an airline ticket and helping them through the process of going through a port of entry. None of that happens without IOM's support.
Eventually, IOM's contract was reinstated and they were funded again. The work continued, but valuable time was lost. Both Michelle and Nan stress that these types of setbacks slow down the entire reunification process for families. That's why it's important that Justice in Motion and other organizations work with people like Gabriel, who are from the region and can connect on the ground with these families, like Teodoro's. Here's Nan again.
The father didn't know about the lawsuit or the settlement benefits, including the ability to reunite with his son in the U.S. until the Justice in Motion defender, Gabriel, found the father this year.
That was 6 years of not knowing that they even had an opportunity to reunite. But people working with families like Teodoro's are wary of the future under this administration. After all, the new Trump government has already violated the terms of the Missel settlement agreement at least twice, according to court documents. For weeks, mental health and legal services were not provided to these families, despite being required by the settlement, until a federal court ordered the administration to continue and remedy the damages. Advocates worry that the administration will keep trying to skirt around the settlement and throw in more roadblocks to these families who are already traumatized. It's now been 6 years since Teodoro has seen his son, Miguel. He's now 21.
Mi hijo ya está trabajando. Él ya está en Estados Unidos. Él está contento.
Miguel is working in the U.S. He's happy, Teodoro says. But without his dad's support, he wasn't able to study like he hoped.
Papá me dijo, nunca has logrado, pero has sufrido por mí. Aquí pues voy a luchar y te voy a ayudar.
Teodoro hopes he'll finally be able to join him and help carry the load. The Trump administration will eventually decide if Teodoro can enter the U.S. and reunite with Miguel. It's an administration that put them in this situation in the first place and came back even tougher on immigration this time around. But Teodoro is still hopeful.
Si Dios permite, pues si algún día voy a ver mi hijo.
Teodoro says, if God allows, one day I'll see him again.
That was Latino USA producer Reynaldo Leaños Jr. We did reach out to the Department of Homeland Security with some questions about family reunifications under this administration and about the termination of the Family Reunification Task Force. We did not hear back. Before we go, I want you to know that even if Teodoro and Miguel are reunited, things aren't always exactly a happy ending for these reunified families.
We have had cases of families that were separated under zero tolerance version 1 that have been re-separated as a result of the second Trump administration's policies, and even families that have been deported.
Reunified families are experiencing new issues under the Trump administration because the federal government is increasing ICE enforcement, and there's been fallout from the skirting around the Miss-El settlement agreement.
We believe that hundreds of class and family members have lost their parole status.
We're going to keep reporting on this issue as part of our show. Our episode was produced by Reynaldo Leaños Jr. It was edited by Julieta Martinelli. It was mixed by Julia Caruso and Leah Shaw Dameron. Fact-checking by Roxana Aguirre. Fernanda Echavarri is our managing editor. Special thanks to Raul Hernandez of Gotham Production Studios. This story was co-published in partnership with El Faro English. The Latino USA team also includes Jessica Ellis, Rebecca Ibarra, Stephanie Lebeau, Andrea Lopez Cruzado, Luis Luna, Glorimar Marquez, Mónica Morales Garcia, JJ Carubin, Adriana Rodriguez, and Nancy Trujillo. Benilei Ramirez and I are executive producers. I'm your host, Maria Hinojosa. Latino USA is part of iHeart's My Cultura podcast network. Executive producers at iHeart are Leo Gomez and Arlene Santana. Join us again on our next episode. And in the meantime, look for us on all of your social media. I'll see you on Instagram. And dear listener, don't forget to join Futuro Plus. Come on now. You've been wanting to do it. Do it now. You get to skip all the ads and you get juicy bonus content. So do that now. Y hasta la próxima. No te vayas. Ciao.
Latino USA is made possible in part by W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first. The John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, and Michelle Mercer and Bruce Golden.